This is the Celebrate World Soil Day, organised by Food and Agriculture Organisation, about understanding more and marvelling at and helping soil to grow better food for us. Soil is so little understood, and especially biology, the organisms living in the soil. My work is all about working more with them by actually leaving them alone, feeding them, no-dig, mulch on top, and we thought to celebrate the day, it would be great to get together with someone in a different part of the world and see how this approach can work in two different climates. So we set up a Zoom call with Kevin of Epic Gardening in San Diego, California, a very dry climate, and compare it with his. And we're both going to make a no-dig bed, so let's see how we got on having a chat.
Software developers are in huge demand everywhere.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Kevin. Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. It's been almost a year since I was at your house.
It is almost a year to the day, and it's almost equally dark here now. This is late. Well, no, yeah. It's mid-afternoon here actually in 20th November today, and it gets dark at about 4:30.
Yeah, yeah. I can see the compost bins back there. I can see the greenhouse. Things are looking pretty good.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, this is a nice opportunity, isn't it, to meet up and have a go and do something together.
Definitely. And a lot has changed on my side since, I mean, I know when I was there last time, I was telling you I was growing in a small front yard and in raised beds. And then now I'm sitting here, you can't see it, but I'm growing on almost a third of an acre of land now. Not growing on it because the land needs a lot of work. And I think that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, this is fascinating for me because obviously you're in such a different climate, such a different soil, and we'll be using similar methods, but with some of the materials perhaps slightly different, and that's what we'll show the viewers in this video.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm curious about, and I think a lot of my viewers would be curious about, is your style. Can it work anywhere? And there's not very much of a different climate than San Diego compared to the UK, right? And so I'm curious to see if it'll work.
Okay, so your soil, you were saying earlier is quite hard, is it?
It's pretty hard. I did a soil test. I did a very simple soil test where you just put a bunch of soil in a mason jar and shake it and let it settle. And as far as the layers, I mean, it looks to be almost entirely clay particles, very little bit of silt, not a lot of sand. And so it's quite hard. It hasn't been grown on in a very long time. I think the area itself used to be an olive orchard like dozens of years ago. Okay. As far as I know, it's just been fallow, sort of patchy grass before I moved into this place.
And you are very dry, aren't you? It's hardly rained since March, you said.
Yeah, the first rain we got since spring was maybe two weeks ago, I would say. So not a lot of rain here.
That's so different. But what it sounds to me like, although it's hard, not necessarily compact, the word compact I think gets a bit overused, so it could be that you water it thoroughly, and although it's clay, it's probably low in organic matter because it hasn't had much growing in it and it's been nothing added, but just by adding organic matter on top, I have a feeling that things are going to come good, and maintaining moisture in whatever way is possible for you, and that will allow this clay to come to life. And clay's great. Clay holds moisture, clay holds nutrients, so I would say clay's better than sand, put it that way.
For sure, yeah. So would you modify your method at all for my style of soil, or what would you do?
I wouldn't modify the method. I would modify the materials according to what's available. I talk about compost a lot and use that. If you could buy some compost, I'd still recommend that in your situation. Results will vary according to exactly what compost you get.
Sure. I've got, there's a couple sources I've got. I could, of course, buy it at a local nursery or something like that. There's the landfill that's sort of the central landfill for San Diego does a pretty good job composting. And they offer it for free if you go haul it. And I have a friend who runs a market garden, and she's used compost and wood chips to rehabilitate her soil, which is almost the exact same as my soil. And so that was my first bet, would be to go for the free compost that seems to be pretty good. It worked for someone here.
Ideally, what I would have done, say for something we're going to do now, would be to get it delivered 3 months ago, and that it finishes decomposing in its pile, and then you use it, and it's a lot easier to get nice results that way. And when you're saying about it being fine, you know, when it's still steaming and hot and you fill a bed with it, it can settle into quite a dense mass, and then it's difficult to get water in there.
Yep. I tested that out in one of the raised beds. I used that exact compost. I actually mixed in with some extra laying around potting mix that I had to sort of lighten it up a bit, and it still compacted a lot, and it still was composting in place. And so it couldn't be used solely, I don't think.
No. So what other materials do you have?
So I've got a bunch of wood chips. I've got other compost sources that I can tap that I think are more well rotted out and composted down. Those are sort of my main go-tos, I would say.
Do you know, I think for this bed that we're going to make together, so to speak, I'd recommend using your other compost sources, you know, that's ready. Okay. But I would still take delivery of, and it'd be fascinating for people to see it being delivered and it all steaming, you know, some of this municipal compost, or however you call it, for future use. And because that will stand you well next spring. You could make loads of new beds. Yeah,
I think what's going to be nice is over the course of maybe a couple times a week, I can always just drive up there. Because again, it's free if you live in San Diego. And so I can just haul truckloads of it and store it over the winter, you know?
Yeah, in terms of size of bed as well. I mean, I don't know, 8 by 4 foot, or are you thinking bigger? Sure. I mean, it could be any size, really.
8 by 4. You know what I like is maybe if we did one kind of the size of in your side yard next to that shed where you had the peach tree, I think.
Yeah, the small garden.
Something like that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's about 4 by 8 feet.
Sure.
And it's amazing actually how much you can grow in a bed that, you know, of that size. Not huge.
Yeah.
And that might need half a ton for a bed of that size.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can get that.
Cool. Right. Well, that's kind of making a start. And then should we organise a bit of planting for you? Like, you going to pop in some garlic?
Yeah. So what do you think if you were, let's say you were me and it was your land, would you be thinking cover cropping that first time, or would you be trying to plant out with something that you would be able to harvest?
No, I would go for vegetables.
Okay.
You know, for all this time and expense, I don't see any need to cover crop. And also in your climate, you know, if you're not growing, if you're trying to cover crop, you need moisture, don't you? It's going to be quite an expensive way to add fertility, a cover crop. By the time you've sown it and watered it and blah, blah, blah. So I would just leave the beds until you're ready to go. And also with this cheap compost that you can get, basically, it's just the cost of haulage. You just wait until you're ready to go in the spring, or in your case, late winter, almost now.
Yeah.
You can sell almost anything. Just fill them as you need them, really, and then crack on.
Okay.
That's how I do it.
Perfect.
So,
sure.
That's been fantastic having a chat with you. It's so lovely to connect again. And I look forward to...
You too, Charles.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've got a lot of work to do over the next 10 days, so I'm going to get to it. And I'll see you back here in 10 days, and we'll compare beds.
Brilliant. Look forward to that.
All right. See
ya.
See ya.
Bye. Homemakers, 21st November, late in the autumn, and we're going to make a new bed here, roughly 4 by 8 feet. You'll see the process, and it's going to be half on mown grass. We've been mowing for about 8 years, and this is what it looked like before. This is Homemakers at the beginning. There's perennial weeds here like thistles and nettles and some couch grass, buttercups, dandelions, a dock or two. So that'll be interesting to compare how this all pans out, and a bit of rubbish to remove, temporary wooden sides there'll be, and I'll see you here in about 10 days and we can compare this with what Kevin has done in San Diego, California, his no dig bed there. I'll be telling you more about all these plants I put in later on in the video, but first of all, let's go over to San Diego and see how Kevin made his bed.
Okay, so we're gonna go here to here. And then what we'll do is measure out the 8 feet. And about there. Offset it just slightly. We'll lay another right there and keep on going. That's what we want to see. Beautiful, rich compost. Now the thing that's interesting, and I know Charles likes to mulch just with more compost, but he also gets quite a bit more rainfall than I do. We actually spoke a couple days ago and we were sharing our growing conditions over the email, and it seems like he's already gotten an inch of rain. Now for me to get an inch of rain, that may not even happen before the end of this year, and so I may start to apply an additional layer of mulch on top of this compost mixture, because I really want to make sure that this new no-dig bed doesn't dry out, especially with these water-sensitive leafy greens. You know, if this dries out, these lettuce can die quite fast.
Hey Kevin, nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's dark over there.
Well, yeah, and it's 12 days since we spoke, 2nd of December today, and we've both been busy, haven't we?
Exactly. Yeah, it seems like you've been. I certainly have been too. I hope, I'm curious to see.
Do you want to learn how to build your very first web page for free? Well, Code Institute's 5
see, you know, worried about the Bermuda grass, and then I took a tip from you where instead of sawing it out and digging it out of the ground in that area and then laying down the cardboard, I decided to just go with what you do, it seems, and just sort of lay it down and smother instead of trying to cut it out. And so that was one of the first things that I did. And I saw you were digging you were putting your new bed in a sort of a side section of the garden, right?
Yeah, that's it. I did do a bit of digging. I had to dig out some roots of brambles or blackberries, because any woody roots I'll dig out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But no weeds, right?
Yeah, and I ran my cardboard around the edge of the bed. I wasn't sure if I'd mentioned that to you for your Bermuda grass.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I did a 4-foot by 8-foot bed, and I just did the cardboard exactly in those dimensions. And then I decided to mulch extra around the edges. And so I think I already noticed what's probably going to end up happening is the Bermuda will crawl from underneath, and then we'll wrap around and come through.
Do you know, it might actually. You could still slot some cardboard underneath that mulch you've got around the edge, and it might be worth doing that. You can't give that grass an inch. So.
Would you just wrap it? You wouldn't wrap it up at all, or would you?
No, I think it's better. Actually, that doesn't make much difference. Just to run it along so it's completely underneath the path.
Yeah, I can clear the mulch back out and put another maybe a foot or so exterior.
Let me see, foot. Yeah, a good foot, 18 inches.
Yeah, just to give it some extra clearance so that if the weeds do come up, they come up 1.5 feet outside of the bed.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think one thing I did that, again, it's a different method to yours, is I went with a straw mulch over the top of the bed, because for me, I was really worried. I know we talked over email and you had already gotten almost an inch of rain, and I don't think there's a chance we'll even get 1 inch before the end of the year. We'll see. And so I decided to put, instead of more and more compost, I went with a light colored sort of straw mulch to see if that would help keep it in a little bit more. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I mean, that's why it's so fascinating, actually, and ongoing. We need to swap notes about this, see how they grow.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what should I expect over the next, let's say, year as I leave that cardboard and that bed in place? How fast will that cardboard go away? How fast would I see that hard clay soil start to improve over time?
The cardboard, if it stays moist, which I'm hoping it will, because you'll just keep your plants watered a bit at least, and you thoroughly wetted, did you, before you put the cardboard down?
So what I did is, maybe I made another mistake then. What I did is I laid the cardboard down. I did a double layer, again, because I was afraid of the Bermuda. And then for a while, for like a day or two, I just heavily wet the compost I put on top, and it was already moist. And so I think the idea was just for it to drain through.
That'll be fine then. Yeah, it will.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically the cardboard's damp. I wouldn't give it much more than 2.5 months, 10 weeks, maybe 12 before it softens, and the grass will start to grow through, and then you'll be pulling some Bermuda grass. I've had people on YouTube comments with Bermuda grass saying they have got rid of it by repeated pulling, but it doesn't just happen. And what we call crab or couch grass here, that same story, but I think yours is more vigorous. So it's just persistence, Kevin. It's like keeping at it.
Yeah, I've heard the same. I've heard that, to get rid of it completely across maybe my whole property would be a fantasy, but for certain areas, if you continually discourage it by pulling and smothering, eventually it just sort of gives up on that area and tends to go somewhere else.
I mean, I would look even actually at getting that cardboard even further extended, or if you've got 2 or 3 beds together there, that gives you a kind of easier area, really, because if you've got only one bed, you've got a lot of perimeter where it can be coming in. And so any area you make, I would keep it more or less square, so that, because that reduces the edge, and that's the problem part.
Yeah, I mean, I think the backyard of my plot, which is all weeds right now, eventually I'd like to have it be a somewhat no-dig approach market garden. And then you're right, at that point, if the rows are running right next to each other, then it's a lot easier to just cardboard out the perimeter, and it's very efficient.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. And meanwhile, your plants will be growing. So, that's the nice thing about the new no-dig bed with compost, that it's not only weeding if you've got the perennial weeds coming through, you've got some nice harvest to come. I'm sure you'll have something soon.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yeah. How often are you sowing some sort of cover crop on top? I know we're talking about this for World Soil Day. Are you doing that somewhat often in the winter, or are you sort of growing through it?
Well, no, not with our winters, because, you know, like now our day temperatures are low 40s on average, and nothing much is growing. So it's a waste of seed, basically, to sow a cover crop at this time of year. And I feel you're just better off with the compost mulch, basically. The mulch is the cover. That's how I look at it. And then that's ready at any time. Because the other thing with damp climates is if you have a cover crop, that can build up slugs and, you know, pests hiding in there. So it's not all roses with cover crops. And they need careful.
It's interesting because, you know, I'm sure you probably get a lot of questions about the slugs and the snails. And I get a lot of questions as well, but it's just not a pest I ever have to deal with because it's never damp enough really for them to thrive.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ruth Stout, who I first followed with my very first no-dig garden all those decades ago, you know, she didn't mention slugs either. She was in Connecticut, and apparently they don't have any slugs either. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the bigger issues are the flying pests that can come around and lay their eggs and multiply, and that's one reason why I might cover, especially as I planted some brassicas in there, so the cabbage moth is going to be pretty bad.
Yeah, definitely. You want the mesh. Have you got mesh? Can you get that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those covers I find brilliant, just to keep insects out generally.
Yeah, exactly. That, like, for me, I don't need to boost the temperatures, and so the thinnest thing I can do that lets the most light through that just blocks the pest is perfect. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, this is like I said in the video, it's my first true no-dig bed, and I suppose now that we've chatted, there's some adjustments that I would still make going forward. I like the way that you did it, where you formed the bed with the wood. I didn't do it that way. I formed it just by hand, but I think that's nice because you could compact it, which is a little smarter. So I think I'm going to do that next time.
It defines the edge. But again, I think it's lovely for viewers. They're seeing two different ways, and you know, there are no rules, if you like. But as long as you understand the principles, you can adjust.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's. I think it's always, for me, it's always been about less about teaching someone how to grow a tomato or how to garden, but more how to think like someone who is a gardener, right? Because then at that point, everyone can solve their own problems.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm excited and you know, grateful to participate in this with you. Excited and very timely release on World Soil Day.
Yeah, me too, Kevin, and I couldn't agree more. And well done, Food and Agriculture Organisation, for stimulating us to do this by having their soil day. So let it be good. Yeah, it will. Alrighty, well, we'll keep in touch. Hopefully, we can compare notes sometime this coming spring. And yeah, thank you so much, Charles. Right, good. Bye then. See ya. So that's all been so interesting, talking with Kevin and swapping notes, and clearly his bed is so different to this one in so many ways. Firstly, in the planting, I mean, you could see that his plants are a bit bigger and lusher, and the way he's mulched the bed, because it's not raining there hardly at all, whereas here it's raining as I'm speaking. It's been raining all morning here, for example, and it's very dark. Not much is growing at this time of year. Nonetheless, we've taken the plunge and put in some plants. I popped in broad beans, mustards, rocket, lettuce, winter purslane, lamb's lettuce. And between the lamb's lettuce, I've planted some garlic, I've sown some spring onions and some spinach. All of those are very cold hardy plants and can tolerate these conditions. They won't actually grow much at this time of year, but they will probably do something in the spring. If I need to protect them more, I've got these hoops, which is actually just a piece of metal that you can slot in both sides of the bed like that, and then some bird netting probably. The other morning I was a bit horrified to, well, Edward said the deer had been in here, and you know, we've got animals around, so with any bed you make and plant up, you need to check that, what the pest situation is. But looking at the bed with sides that you can see, this is not obligatory to have sides on a bed. Do have a look at my video, Start Out No Dig, where you see me making a bed without sides. The advantage with sides can be particularly if you've got vigorous perennial weeds, and I'll be fascinated to see how Kevin's bed goes from that point of view with that creeping grass. We've got some of that on the other side, and I'm going to put an extra layer of cardboard down. What I thought would be interesting, just to finish this video is to have a look at what's in here if I remove this side. So this side is temporary. You can see all that's holding it there is these stones. It's not screwed at the corners or anything, and it's just it's a former to give shape, there you go, to the compost, and that is how it looks at the moment. So if I left that off now, this is all going to collapse rather, and obviously it won't be so good for these plants, but it's more just long term. What I want to do is, or short term, keep this cardboard without compost on, and then it's just a pure cardboard mulch that I can top up and keep topping up until the perennial weeds here are dead. And it's just holding it all together until it settles. This will settle. This compost will decompose even more, and will end up this time next year, probably it'll be half the height, and that'll be fine. It'll be more of a mounded side. So these sides will come off, but not yet. Sometime probably in April. And I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this whole process and comparison, and we look forward to working with Kevin a bit more in the future.